Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, to whenever you're watching this. Welcome back to another episode of Bodybuilding and Beanie. But to be fair, the name doesn't really work anymore, does it, Sam? Because I don't really wear them anymore.
No, you don't. I think you've gone off beanies. Impulsive decision. No beanies for Josh anymore. I
Yeah.
think you need some new ones. That's what it is. You need to freshen up your collection. Although I've lost one of mine.
Wait, I can't wear new ones, mate, because I have to wear only Trinity ones. Can't wear any more. Can't wear any.
So I've got the Carhartt, but I don't have
Wait,
the.
wait, no, 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 well, that's got to be bleeped.
Is it? Is it?
Yeah, first time Sam's being bleeped, he mentioned another brand. I'm also going to do this.
Kill me. Kill me. Josh Miller going to kill us now. Fuck. But yeah, I'm getting some other beanies, Trinity ones. Um,
Which one have you got? Have
I haven't got any Trinity ones.
you not?
Nah, like I personally prefer shorter fisherman styles. So hopefully Josh brings them out if you're listening to this, which I'm
The
sure he.
issue is, right, they've kind of been like stretched out. So like when I got them, they weren't this long.
Now they're ball bag beanies.
Yeah, because now like if I put them on, right, like it's like there's too much there. I feel like they've been stretched out a bit too much.
Bit of
So
empty sack on top.
yeah, like, I'm not. I'll wear them in prep next year. They're being saved for a rainy day. Well,
Preps are a good beanie time because you're colder.
but it's also like the reason I put them on in prep was because I didn't have the energy to sort my hair out. Like this is really grim. Um, sometimes do you have a bath in your house?
I used to have a bath, but I don't anymore.
Did the bath have like a shower head with it?
Yes.
So when I'm really lazy and I've showered the night before, if I'm like in a rush, which in prep you're always in a rush, I'll just lean over the bath and just wash my hair, and then I'll just do my hair. I put that sound. I can't be asked doing that when I'm in prep, so I just whack a beanie on and crack on with my day. Um, and then I can't take the beanie off because my hair looks all shit, so I just keep it on. Um, that's really disgusting, isn't it?
See, that just makes me feel weird, you know. I can't wash like one part of my body. I don't know what it is, but I just don't like I couldn't have my head being wet and my body being dry. It makes me feel weird.
It is a very weird sensation, but you get used to it over time. Um, yeah, it's not like something I just usually do. Um, yeah, I'll have a shower later because I still need to do cardio. So then tomorrow I'll just do the head over the bath. Um, but yeah, so beanies at the moment aren't working for me because I've got a bit more energy to actually sort my hair out. Um, or apparently, according to fucking everyone on Instagram at the moment, what's left of it, even though it's genuinely better than what. To be fair, I will give some leniency. It does go a bit thinner in prep, but that's usual. Now it's back to pretty much back to being.
Why did you go thinner in prep, Josh? Hmm?
There's certainly a thing called Mastron. There's certainly a thing called Tren,
And
uh,
stress.
and yeah, and a lot of stress. Um, which, to be fair, in that case, then it's probably it should really be thin now. But then something called minoxidil, but is
Even mate, he's clutching.
if Trinity want to do 10% minoxidil, that'd be absolutely fantastic. Managed to cling on to my hairline, and it's going well. Do need to get some more finasteride though. But enough of our hair because no one actually gives a fuck. How are you, mate? How are you?
I'm good. I had my the legit well, we spoke about my poo samples being sent off weeks ago.
Oh yeah, how's that come about?
Um well, Holly loves to rub shit in my face, to be fair, quite
Really?
funnily enough. She's great at doing that. And
Yours?
basically,
Your own?
yeah, but my pip smeared poo all over my face. But in in a nutshell, she basically said, "I told you so" twice because when I went for a consultation for my blood work and I wanted to look deeper into my skin issue, she was like, "I reckon it's GI tract related." Bloods came back, she said, "I told you so." Had that marker came back, which relates to GI. This one came back, and she said, "I told you so" again because there's a couple of things in this which relate to, well, firstly, I had E. coli. which is great, which came from Morocco. But I still have E. coli poisoning in my stomach, which is great. And then also I have something which is a low level of beta glucuronidase, which is I never heard of it in my life. This whole biomarker sheet of the store samples is so advanced. I've never seen anything of it in my life. But anyway, it can relate to a lack of hormone clearance. So I'm not clearing my hormones correctly. So they're basically I've got excess estrogen floating around and it's not being cleared. And it's acting as a toxin to my body in a nutshell, from what I've researched.
Have you found what you can do?
Well, no, not as of yet. I'm not speaking to. There's a few other things. I've got a lot of microbiome imbalances as well. So a lot of good bacteria which is imbalanced, too high or too low. I'm speaking to Dr. Max from Atlas about it on the first. So consult with him and hopefully gonna sort out my microbiome issues and get rid of fucking E. coli. And then fingers crossed, my skin actually comes and starts playing ball.
That'd be fun. That'd
Well,
be
yeah, bit of root cause analysis for which my skin issues, which have been causing me issues my whole fucking life. And it's been related to my GI
cool.
tract.
Stay tuned for regular updates on Sam's shit.
Yeah, Sam's fucking it's so gross speaking about it, isn't it?
It is a bit mean, yeah.
Like I just like why can't I think about fucking gear, mate? Instead I talk about fucking
Speaking of gear, I'm now on blast.
I'm, yeah, apparently I'm meant to go on next week, but I might
Oh,
hold
I briefly mentioned it when we had Joe on. Tim doesn't know this. I'm probably going to tell him on Monday. Throughout my last week of being a TRT soldier, I couldn't be asked to pin 150 milligrams of testosterone. So I just didn't pin it. So for about a week, I had no test at all. I still do, feel shit, horrendous. And it's made me feel very, very sorry for those who do natural bodybuilding preps because that's probably what they feel like. So in the next week, when my test begins to peak, I'll feel back to being me when the 700 milligrams kick in. But I'm now on blast, so I should be feeling a little bit better soon. 1.1 grams of gear starting the blast, most I've ever used. Not the most I've ever used yet, but like the most I've ever started the blast on, so that's quite cool. And then we're going to escalate every 3 to 4 weeks up to around 1.6, 1.7, maybe.
fucking hell, bro. It's approaching 2 grams.
I know, I'm basically becoming an actual real gearhead. This time next year, I will be bold.
It's yeah, you need to shave it off, bro, in advance.
I will literally, I reckon this time next year, I'll probably just go through one whole bottle of this in like a week. So manual, we'll probably getting like weekly subscriptions from me. So that'd be great. It's another expense, put it on the business.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that's cool. At least I actually started my off season now that I'm not dying. And then hopefully try and build some muscle and actually not lose a show next year. That'd be sound. That's the plan. And then probably starting prep around back end of May time.
I reckon I'll be around the same time.
Yeah.
But
Quite cool.
yeah,
We might be doing like similar shows as well.
I hope I won't be doing London. Fuck that shit, but
You're doing finals though.
if I'm good enough, yeah.
You will. If I'm... But no, it'll be good to like have a podcast going when the two of us are going through prep because it's like almost like a bit more preppy updates, isn't it?
What's that?
It'd be good to have the podcast going like when we're both in prep because it'd be good.
When we're both fucking dying, yeah. Sound.
Because to be fair, like with me when I was in like the back end of prep, I really look forward to doing the podcasts
Yeah.
because it's. I remember like when we first started it, you were like, "Do you want to do it afterwards?" I was like, "No, let's do it now," because it's like it's something to almost like look forward to. Because I feel like in prep, this is actually a bit deep. You get very lonely, and
Oh yeah,
you're
it's a lot of shit to do.
yeah, and then like being able to like just chat about it, even though it's just the same shit, which you probably put on your Instagram the same day anyway. You're at least thinking like, "Oh, I get to chat about this, I get to chat about that," and it's quite fun. So that'll be quite good. So we can go through your shows, we can go through my shows, we can go through how things are. It'll be quite exciting.
But also I can do steps like I'm doing right now during prep and it saves me to be fucking out there in solitude by myself. So out there in the brisk environments. So I can just stand here, get about 4K steps in whilst we're talking absolute waffle, mate.
And to be fair, I'll have my office sorted soon in my spare room, so that'll be cool. And then I've got a treadmill, but I think I'm also getting rid of it because I don't really use it.
Sell it and buy one of these. These are the best thing I've ever bought.
Well, it's just a flat out walking pad.
It's just a flat walking pad on the floor with a remote with a wireless remote control.
Sound? How
Just
much?
120 from there.
It's not too bad. And the treadmill I got was like 70 quid off like Facebook.
That's what I'm saying, bro. It's great. And it's not something you can run on, but obviously and it feels like you're gonna go through the floor sometimes, but hey, it's all right.
It's all right. Get things in without even noticing. But on the topic of preps, what this podcast is actually about, we want to do a podcast basically talking through how to make your first prep if you're thinking about prepping this year or not this year, next year, or the following year as productive as possible. Because I feel like this time of year, people are very close to either starting prep for shows in like March, April time, or planning maybe to start prep in May, April time for shows at the back end of the year. Um, but like with how me and Sam have obviously done multiple preps now, we kind of wanted to get a bit more sort of information out there in terms of like how you can kind of set yourself up the best. Like for example, if you're thinking to compete not next year but the year after, there's things you can do next year which are going to only put you in a better position to make your prep even better. I think many people think as soon as I start prep, that's when everything starts to kick in. That's when I start to be on the money with everything. Where if you can get everything set up before that, you're only going to make your prep easier. Like there's so many things which I did differently this prep to my last prep which made things easier. There's so many things which I will do for my next prep, which make things even easier as a result. So what we're trying to do is basically put that information out there so you can basically take our advice on board as we go into our third preps and just do that for your first and make sure you don't have any silly, stupid mistakes.
Fact.
Pretty much.
Factual information.
So what would you start off? Let's say you're competing in let's say we've got loads of time. Let's say you're thinking to compete back end of 2026. What are you thinking to do right now?
I think, see, the thing is, right, I think, right, off seasons again, I take it from my personal perspective, is that obviously in terms or even with them other clients, off season's a place which is a not a dangerous place, but you have off plans, you have things which are, not necessarily the best for you. You may be a little bit more, tiny bit more relaxed. But your training's good, everything else is good in your life. Fantastic. Now, obviously, there's not much you can say, but in regards to the off season, you should have carried that on until you hit prep. Now, one thing I will say massively is what I am a big, big believer in is a pre-prep phase. Whether or not you call it pre-prep, you call it priming, you call it whatever the fuck. I think it's so crucial to get a pre-prep phase done, set yourself up for prep correctly.
Yeah.
And pre-prep can be a matter of 2 weeks to 8 weeks, where you're basically still an off season, but what you're doing is allowing yourself to remove all of that fucking shit stuff and get dialed in for prep. Because switching from off plans and having a bit more of a relaxed time to actually going into a prep mindset can be hard. I think just getting yourself a bit more screwed on whilst keeping the food there and whilst keeping training performance high and getting yourself prime going, fuck, okay, I'm about to go into prep soon, will get you in such a better position in my eyes. Did it with Josh. We've done it. I say I do it myself. Christine didn't set me one, and I did my last coach, but you autonomously do it via just thinking I'm going to prep soon. I best just not fuck up anything right now. I'm going to be on the ball with absolutely everything, 7 days a week. So whether you do set it, whether you don't, that's up to you. I set it for my clients personally, a pre-prep because I think it's beneficial. But yeah, it's hard to say about the off season what you should do right now, but you might have some different opinions.
Yeah. So if you're thinking, let's say you want to compete back end of 2026, let's say British final sort of time, etc., things like that. So you're most likely going to be thinking to start prep. If it's your first one, most likely, let's say you're doing a PCA first time show back end of September. Roughly 20 weeks before that is going to be around start of May, back end of April. I would give yourself more time than you think you're going to need. Now, this is obviously going to depend on how much muscle you have. This is going to depend on how well you know you can adhere to a diet, but there's also going to be plenty of things which come up which you can't account for, which you can't plan for. You can't plan for getting ill. You can't plan for work things like, for example, if you don't have a job in the industry, if you're working a corporate job like Sam, for example, and let's say you had to go for a week away to work at an event or something, and it's going to be a bit more stressful. You can't really account for that. That might come up 2, 3 weeks in advance from that, and then at that point you might be 8 weeks out. So there's going to be plenty of things which come up. So I think just give yourself more than enough time, so that if there is a week where body weight is stalling a bit too much, or maybe even more than that, where you don't have to stress about it too much. Um, so I'd say for a first timer, I'd say a 20-week prep is like the minimum I'd really go for, just to make sure that you're ready early, just to make sure that you're ready to be fresh, you can peak properly, and that everything is perfect come literally show day, literally peak week, for example. But then in terms of what you can do before that, so now we're thinking to reverse engineer backwards from when your show date is roughly going to be, reverse engineer backwards to when you want to start prep. Now, right now you're going to have no idea what your estimated stage weight is going to be. So it's very difficult to say, but you can go off body composition. Now, this is where I think a pre-prep diet is really, really, really important. Now, I know with Sam and Josh, they ran his pre-prep diet literally just before he started prep. Like it was literally a pre-prep, a couple of weeks back into prep. So it's only a case of like a very short period of not dieting really. But I've also seen people who do pre-prep diets maybe like the year before. So they might diet towards, let's from like say September through to November and then start prep around April, May. And then through that period, they still going to be growing. They're still going to be in an off season, but they're not going to be eating as much food as they can. They're not going to be really pushing body weight. They're going to be focusing on their training. If they need more food, they're going to have more food. But it's more sort of keeping body composition in a very good spot so that again you don't have to start prep and you can I still would be a bit more aggressive when you start prep as opposed to the back end, but not being so aggressive to the point where you need to just diet because that's where you just run into issues. For example, diet fatigue. That's where when you're in aggressive deficit, you're not only going to be putting off body fat, but you're probably going to be removing some muscle as well. So I think if you're again thinking to compete in 2026, you should already be thinking to plan out when you're going to be maybe pulling back this year. So that might be, for example, I'm going to spend the next 8 months in an improvement phase in a surplus. I then might go into a 8 to 10 week diet. I then might then go back into a very minute surplus, pushing me into a good spot to start prep April sort of May time. So it's very much a case of reverse engineering back from your show date. But I think a lot of people at times will forget that because it seems so far away, but it's going to go very, very fast. Like we're literally what less than 2 weeks away from 2025, and it feels like yesterday that we were literally 2024. Like it's 2023. Like it's absolutely flown by. So the next year will fly by as well. So it's all about making sure that you're set up to be in the best position possible, really. Anything you'd add?
Nothing really. In regards to a lot of that stuff, I mean, like I said, the pre-prep is, I think, so crucial. I mean, what I did with Josh, was it was a 4 week pre-prep, which then when he went away to Bali, allowed him to then he was in a health phase, so it kind of lined up nicely. It was in a health phase prior to prep. And the 4 weeks of the initial health phase was him solidifying his tissue almost to a certain degree through training and keeping his foods as solid as possible without going off plan at all. And that counted as a pre-prep. So it was almost like an 8 week pre-prep, really. Um, until basically when we went to Bali, we started dropping food out of his plan because he
Yeah.
was on about 5,000, well, close to 6,000 calories basically. Started dropping food out naturally as he went away to Bali for 4 weeks, in which we just basically started prep in a nutshell, but it was still technically pre-prep. When I got back from Bali, then we dropped the hammer properly for which was a 12-week prep. Now, obviously, 12-week prep, like Josh said, 20 weeks for your first time is going to be very standard across the board because you don't know as a competitor. You haven't taken it there intensity wise. Now, Josh was a first timer, but the level of tissue that he had, it comes down to even how heavy you are. If you're quite a light individual, you're probably going to need to do more cardio. You're going to need to do more expenditure, and that can take a massive toll on you as an individual. And you will probably end up half-arsing it. when you do have the ability to have, well, when you have a lot of muscle, you have the ability to not do so much of that expenditure stuff and normally pull from food or utilize drugs to aid you in that venture. So, Josh's 12-week prep, that was what we did for him, and we had to make it work. Um, but then again, the 8 weeks prior to that, we were already sorting it out prior to his 12-week drop the hammer. So realistically, it was a 20-week prep if you think about it. But you know, for yourself, 20 weeks plus the pre-prep, 4 weeks at least, I would say, of just getting yourself in a better position
Yeah.
with relationship with that's relationship with food, relationship with training, make sure everything's to the T prior to go. Because I'll be honest, here's one thing I did, right? I went into prep and my step count was set as 10K and I was hitting about six, 7.5 each day. And the first week of prep, Christy said to me, you need to do more steps, bro. You're on prep now. And immediately I bought a step machine. So this is the thing, pre-prep can help you find these things out where you're going, right, well, I'm not hitting this because of X, Y, and Z. I'm not doing this because of X, Y, and Z. And you make reasonable adjustments. In my first prep, I had two gym memberships. I had a gym membership, a pure gym around the corner, and one at the other gym because I wanted to go and do cardio in a different environment and do it at any time of day after the gym had shut my gym at the time. So you gotta prepare for these things, expect if cardio.
I've still got three gym memberships, three, two.
And that's what I mean. You need to prepare for every situation. If you know your gym's going to shut at 9 o'clock, but you want to do cardio later on in the evening, or for example, because if you work a corporate job like myself, sometimes it is difficult to, you might not be a morning, an early bird, and that's perfectly fine. But you need to make reasonable adjustments to get your shit done. If cardio goes up to 4 or 5 times a week because you're quite a lightweight individual and you need to do cardio, then you need to make sure you're prepared to do cardio and have every case covered. Because last thing you want to do on prep is start stressing because you've missed your cardio for the day, then you're thinking about it for tomorrow, and you're having to try and fit it in somewhere else. Whereas if you have a gym membership ready, go and do it. Simple as that.
And then also like when we spoke about like obviously Sam touched on there, like with if you're potentially like a lighter individual, you're going to be having to do unfortunately a bit more cardio, for example. But regardless of where you're at, I think it's a good idea when you're coming to around maybe 35 to 30 weeks out, so you won't be in prep yet. Well, you might not be. And let's say again, you're going to go for between like a 24 to 16-week prep, for example. Now, there's different ways to go about things. You can go for a bit more of an aggressive rate of loss, so you can make that prep a bit shorter. But what that's going to mean is that you're going to have to lose a lot more. If you, let's say, have a 12 to 16-week prep where you need to lose 40 pounds, like the reason why Josh Connolly had a shorter prep, even though he's the first time, is he didn't have that much to lose. Like, what was the body weight difference?
There was none.
There you go.
The obviously difference being was drugs out and then drugs back in and then obviously an escalation in drugs towards the end of his prep, which can do a lot of things for your physique. So he almost grew through prep. And
Yeah,
to be honest, you'll find that as well. As natural, maybe not. As an assisted athlete, you might find, your body starts functioning better through prep, at least through the most part of prep. Through 10 weeks of prep, you might actually start growing because your body's functioning better. Especially if you take your off season to the extent of probably not being the most.
hold on. I'm gonna do a few like calculations on my phone.
That's fine. But
So
if you don't take your, if it back into the off season, you are not maybe the most optimal. Don't really like using that word, but you get what I'm saying. You can actually grow through prep, which I'm pretty certain Josh Connolly did in his case. He grew through prep, tissue wise. But yeah,
and
freak.
so like for example, I feel like a usual. I'm saying a usual prep. It doesn't. There's no usual. I'm just going off literally mine here. So to be fair, in your prep, how much body weight do you pull off? Let's maybe talk about Josh. She's the anomaly.
Yeah, I pulled off about. Oh, I was 169 lowest, and I started prep about 205.
So let's should we say 40 pound?
Yes.
Cool, because that's exactly the number which I chose. So I've made these notes on my phone, and it makes a lot more sense. So let's say we spoke about again different sort of prep lengths. So including a peak week, this because I've just put 16 and 20 and 25 weeks. 16 weeks to remove 40 pounds is going to mean that you have 2.5 pounds rate of loss per week. That sounds like a lot. This sounds like not too much, like but roughly a kilo or so, which is generally sound for most diets. But then with a 25-week prep, you then have 1.6 pound to lose every week, or 1.7 without a peak week, which is a lot more feasible if you think about it, because there's less pressure. If you only lose a pound in that week, it's not the end of the world because you can just recoup the extra point 0.7 in the next week. It's not the end of the world.
There's room for error.
Yeah, there's a lot more room for error, which I think, if you're coming into like your third or fourth prep, for example, especially if you worked with coaches for different for the same coach for different preps, you're gonna learn things. Like for example, going into next season, me and Tim pretty much have the exact peak week. That's perfect for me based on the three peak weeks we did this year. What works well, what doesn't work well. Blend them. We kind of already done that. So that's where we already have everything sorted and perfect. But then let's say if you're going for a smaller rate of loss over a great amount of time, you could potentially even ramp things up if you need to and speed up that rate of loss if you can afford to, and then you're ready early because that's something which I think not a lot of people even like. People chat about it a lot more maybe at the moment, but I think even like the sense of like the removal of cardio, people don't even think how much beneficial that could be for your physique. Like we removed cardio in my prep from about 3 weeks out, and my physique literally changed without body weight even having to come down that much through just being fresher. And when your cardio is high, so and you can allow food to be high, that's going to be called a high energy flux diet. So you're burning a lot more calories, and but you're obviously eating more, so therefore you can preserve your training a bit more. You've got more food. However, a lot easier way to diet when you're maybe towards the back end of prep, where you don't want to be accumulating so much more fatigue, is actually going for a low energy flux diet. So removing cardio, expenditure is not as high. Expenditure is probably going to be coming through steps. You can then just allow for a lot less food and just pursue that energy through just lesser food. Yes, you're probably going to be more hungry. You're probably going to feel a bit more tired because you haven't got as much food, but your physique is going to be so much fresher then going into a peak week because you've got all this work done early. You've removed anything which is going to cause your body stress. You're then going into a peak week in the perfect position leading up to your show. And that's what I think some people kind of forget about, is that there's a lot more planning than people sort of think. If you just jump into a prep and you don't really know what to do, what to expect, you're probably going to set yourself up for a lot more failure, a lot more risk of failure than if you just think, right, let me plan this in advance. It doesn't even take that much time. You sort of need to know when you want to compete, roughly. Don't even have to be the exact show. I want to be ready roughly around September time. I want to compete in September. I want to compete in October. Reverse engineer from there, and then think, right, I want to have cardio out 3 weeks beforehand. So think, right, I want to have cardio at least the very, very end, 2 weeks before the end, or middle of August, for example. So ready for September. Then you can freshen it from then. Okay, so I want to have the vast majority of my body weight pulled off before that. Probably want to start prep around this sort of time. But it takes a lot more planning than what a lot of people sort of think, which is why it's important to fucking do that.
Yeah, you can't, like, for example, right, I've just picked up a client, Mancuso, you know Mancuso, blind that he takes photos for
Yeah,
Proco.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man like Mancuso. So I've just picked him up as a client and he starts prep officially in 1 week time. And I don't know. And obviously I don't really, he's competing in on the first time as PCA Naturals Men's Physique in May. So it's pretty much a straight ball to wars, and it's going to be, well, I'm going to have to take it aggressive because obviously I don't know him and I don't know, who he is. I mean, his previous coach did give me some insight into how he is as an individual, but obviously we like to work our own ways, and I'm gonna have to be aggressive because, unfortunately, I can't get 10 weeks in trialing him out and trying to get him into. So I need to
That's
see it. I need to see an instant result.
because right now you're in a position where body fat's going to be a lot higher, so therefore you can afford to be a bit more aggressive. But what you also get out of being aggressive and getting into that spot where you do need to refeed, which I want to touch on next, is I often think refeeds are a very good time to trial what you're going to do come show
Oh
day,
yeah,
not show
easily.
day, but to gather data for a peak week. And as much as gathering data is such a cringy saying, like everyone says, oh, we jumped into the show early, we gathered data. You didn't gather fuck all, bro. But I think a refeed is a very good time to just understand how someone's body weight responds, how someone's visuals respond. And again, the leaner they are, the better idea that's going to give you come peak week. So for example, if you're giving someone, let's say, an extra 400 carb on one day, an extra 400 carb the next day, so an extra 800 carb across 2 days. You understand how their body weight responds. You understand how they respond visually. Does it respond a bit too much? Does it respond not enough? And that's going to give you more data for the next time you do it. And then hopefully by the time you come to peak week, you've already kind of got in mind what you want to do because you've already trialed it out weeks before, weeks before, weeks before. And then in an ideal situation, for example, with Sam, you're hopefully going to get an idea of how much food you're going to need to fill up weeks before. You then do that again just to make sure, maybe 2 to 3 weeks out, you then know exactly what you need to do. You have a really, really stress-free peak week.
Exactly. So yeah, I need to see where he stands now. Obviously, like I said, he's not the leanest, but I know for a fact that, I'm capable of pushing somebody to their limits. So we'll just see we can bring him in. But it's not an ideal situation because I got, I'm a sucker for pre-prep phase, and unfortunately, I don't know what this guy's been doing. I don't know what Mancuso's been up to, for the past fucking 8 weeks. He could have been eating shit. I don't know. But, it's one of them things which I should take on the chin, and hopefully he responds pretty quickly to what I set him with immediate effect. And then we go from there, and hopefully in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks time, we see some drastic changes, and I can go, right, I'm confident now that I can see the rest of this prep out for him. Big transfer day. It's like a fucking deal deadline day. That is Christ. Just last minute fucking transfer. That is Christ. Before the season starts. Not you don't get a preseason, do I? Fuck me. No preseason. The test people are testing you know.
I,
But
I
I've got
also think it'd be good to touch upon like training within a prep because that's what I think is. I hate to say it, but I think people almost like view training as like ticking a box.
oh, I'll be honest. I've been a culprit of ticking boxes in prep sometimes on training. I've been a culprit, a massive culprit of ticking boxes in prep, and it's a bad habit. But some you are going to be ultimately right. You are going to be low on energy. You're going to be feeling fatigued, fucking fatigued. You are going to be feeling fatigued.
Hey, fatigue management doesn't exist. Just fucking crack on, bro.
Yeah, legit. You're not fatigued, bro. You're just lying to yourself. But on a real level, you will feel some levels of low energy, which does classify as fatigue in certain respect. Potential soreness. But ultimately, your coach, if you have a coach, should be managing that accordingly. You as a client need to make sure this is the best thing you need to do is provide the most valuable feedback to your coach, and I mean that in such detail. If you are struggling or you feel like, and they'll tell you whether you're being a bitch or whether or not it's actually warranted to then start pulling volume.
Yeah.
They know they've prepped
I
many
think
clients
volume
before.
is something which is really, really important to look upon because I've spoken plenty of times on Instagram about this, about how ideally with you've got three things with training. So you've got your intensity, your volume, and your frequency. Ideally, you never ever change your intensity unless you're in a peak week, so you need to cater into that. But your frequency is probably always going to stay the same because you're probably going to have the same training split for the entirety of prep. So what you can play around with is volume. Now, if you're training balls to the wall and every single set is as effective as possible and is as productive as possible, it's going to come to a point where it's still productive, but it's accumulating too much fatigue. It's a lot easier to hold tissue than it is to build tissue. Like you don't need as much training volume to hold tissue than you do need to build. So that's where actually pulling back and just making sure what you're doing is always productive and it's not taking away from anything is really important. When it does start taking away, that's when you can start looking at like I say intensifiers, but I actually use intensifiers in my prep to hold tissue. But what I would say is like if you're, for example, doing 3 sets with a drop set on every single set, probably pull out the drop set because that's just going to be an additional point of failure, which you don't really need too much. That being said, like throughout my prep, we did run intensifiers, so like rest pauses, but that they were in all the time to make basically my session still productive, but without doing an additional full working set where you've got that almost like junk bit of volume prior to getting towards those more stimulative reps. So that's again something which I think is very, very important to look upon is your training performance. And it's almost it's a bit difficult for me to sort of like explain because I don't really understand it like myself in my head. But I just remember being in prep this year and the year before, I'm now very aware of my mindset towards training wasn't how it needs to be towards the back end. It was very much just ticking that box and fucking off home. I try and get my session done as soon as I can. It's shorter session, more intense. No. I said to myself, this session in off season would usually take me about 2.5 hours. So I'm not leaving the gym for 2 to 2.5 hours. I'm staying in the gym for 2 to 2.5 hours. If it usually takes me 10 minutes to go into a stiff leg set because I'm getting myself switched on, I'm still doing that in prep because that's what I do in off season. That's what built my muscle. That's what's going to keep it. So staying on top of these things. And if I'm honest, like this is where people I think need to switch their head off because the amount of times people will probably listen to the voice in their head, which is like, oh, I'm a bit tired today. I'm feeling a bit shit. I look a bit flat. So I'm not going to be able to train very well. You need to, like, for lack of better words, just shut the fuck up and pretend you're in an off season.
Yeah.
Like I literally remember being in EP with Sam. The first time was it the first time we trained together then?
Yeah, would have been.
Yeah, first time we ever trained together, I felt absolutely horrendous. But I was like, right, I'm just gonna do something. I'm just gonna train, and it's gonna be quite cool. So I was like, right, I've got a dumbbell RDL. What's the heaviest they do? Right, I've done more than that, so I'm gonna band some dumbbells on. I had like some makeshift 105 kilos. I was terrified it was gonna break my foot, but I was like, but I'd probably do this in off season, so I'll do it now. And things like that, that's what's gonna hold your tissue is just doing the things which you would still do in off season. Don't need to change anything for the vast majority of your prep, keep your training exactly the same, but still treat your sessions as you would do in off season. Put all of your energy into that. If that means that you go home and you feel absolutely horrendous because you're even more back to the gym, sound. But just make sure that your training is always the best thing you possibly can do. I remember watching a video from James Hollinshead a couple of years ago, and it was like how you should feel if you're 10 days out. Have you ever seen it?
Nah, I can
Actually,
imagine.
yeah, it's a very, very good video. And it's almost like kind of just like some harsh truth which you sort of need to understand. Like you might be thinking you want to have a bit more social time because you miss out on that a lot through prep. But if you go in to get a coffee with your mate or go for a walk, it's going to take away some energy that takes away from your training. Don't. If
Mm.
you can actually go to the gym, maintain your numbers, maybe take a few progressions, that's all you need to worry about. And you don't need to worry about doing more. That's another thing which I want to touch on just before we finish is doing more within a prep. But I think the main thing you can do to make your prep as productive as possible, obviously, let's say if you're working with a coach, they'll be planning everything out for you. So they'll be carrying out all of that. But what you can do the best as for you as an athlete is making sure your training is as good as it possibly can be, making sure nothing is able to take away from that. So nothing you're doing externally is providing stress to that. So let's say when it comes to your training routine, making sure you're training at the same time, you're getting yourself in the right headspace to train. Little things like that were only going to make you train as a better result. For example, me, I train better when I'm in a good mood. I train better when I see my mates. So me being a really, really selfish fucking bastard, I'd message Sam when I was in prep saying, "Where you two? Do you fancy training?" I didn't say to anyone at the time. Granted, I wanted to see my mates, but I also wanted my training better. So I was like, "What's Tom doing? What's Danny doing? What's Sam doing?" Because I was like, one, I get to see my mates, but two, unfortunately at this point, most importantly, being quite selfish, it makes my training better because it puts me in a better mood. My training was good for pretty much all of my prep, well, no, all of my prep, because I was always in a good mood because I was seeing my mates all the time. So it's just doing, but again, some people aren't like that. Some people like to be a bit more isolated. But I think making sure that your training can always be as productive as possible is only going to make your prep better. Because if you can go into a set 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, and absolutely bury yourself when you're not trying to be restrictive on intensity, that's only going to bring a better look to stage.
But yeah, to wrap up, I think with that, like again, I just think though, in essence, though, you need to make sure you do communicate with your coach though massively,
Yeah.
like because
Like even like
if
I remember messaging Tim like literally halfway through my session because I was still logging everything. I was like, I've absolutely sent every single set. Here are my numbers in comparison to last week. Then they're fucked. They're really, really bad. It would sometimes be like 5 reps down. He's like, okay, you need food. So he puts some work out.
and it can be many things. The changes, that again I'll make like with myself that got changed was pulling out intensifiers, pulling out this, pulling out that at certain checkpoints of prep. And then with Josh, it was very much a similar thing with when I prepped him, it was pulling out key parts of volume, which possibly was leading to maybe a worse look or worse set of performance. There's certain movements which you can pull from a prep, which can yield so much benefit elsewhere during the sessions. There's some you got to keep your big movements in, but you could pull one set from a big movement and give you so much more energy for the rest of your session, for the rest of your movements, and that could be a game changer for the rest of your prep. If you just pull in one set, maybe from from which could literally you're not going to benefit from by doing it. Do you know what I mean?
I also think exercise selection is something which is really, really important. And this is usually with pressing work because you won't really find it too much with realistically, like again, there'll be some people who do barbell squat, for example, but there'll be the vast majority of people will be looking at things like a leg press, things like a hack squat, like a pendulum. But I think with pressing work, body weight is very, very important to how well you can progress because you want to be stabilizing that load the best that you possibly can. Your body weight is going to come down and it will feel towards the back end of prep as if you are a fragile old woman and you feel absolutely horrendous and you can't stabilize a dumbbell. So just remove them from the start of prep and transition to something like a machine-based press, a Smith machine, something which is just a very fixed movement pattern. So all you have to focus on is just A to B.
Fact.
Get a lot more bang for your buck because if, for example, you're in off season, you can dumbbell press to 60 kilos, mint, really good. You might be able to keep your strength, but a lot of that strength almost comes from you just being in a much more stable environment. So that if you then try to do them when you're, let's say, 3 weeks out, you're pretty much peeled, you're pretty much there, you're ready, you're not going to be able to stabilize them to the best degree. I remember dumbbell pressing after, I think I was like a couple of days post show this year, and I was still strong. I was still pressing the 50s. They felt easy, but I was like, I only got 3 reps. They moved like nothing, but then it would just hit a sticking point where I'm just like, I'm pressing like that.
But either that or there's another way you can approach it is that you might only have access to two dumbbells to a gym. So
Yeah,
you go, what do I do here? You can change your rep ranges massively, and that can do a big thing. You can increase the rep range, and ultimately, right, not trying to be too scientific regarding sarcoplasmic and myofibrillar fucking hypertrophy and low rep ranges and high rep ranges. Stimulus is stimulus, ultimately. If you can take a set, like we spoke with Joe Gann on the last podcast, if you can take a set with accuracy to failure with the intensity, stimulus, stimulus. So
yeah,
if you're training this in a 5 to 9 rep range on a dumbbell press and pressing 70 kilos and you pull that back up to a 15-20 rep range and you take both as equally to failure and with the intensity and accuracy, but on set one with the 5 to 9 rep range, you can't build stability. So you one risk of injury and two possibly can't take the set there all the way. But on a 15 to 20 rep range, you can during prep.
yeah.
Stimulus is stimulus. You're going to still keep tissue through doing that. And, there are studies showing you only need to do 30% of what you did in the off season, which is not a cop out, by the way.
No, it's not.
It's not a cop out, but it's to give peace of mind that if you are taking sets 100% there and you're able to do it, then you're going to still keep that tissue. So if you need to change rep ranges, you can do because some people do have gyms where they are low on facilities, and that's perfectly fine. So if if you can't pull a movement, then change it to at least suit your needs better. And that can be simple as changing from 5 to 9 to fucking 12 to 15 rep range.
However,
Simple.
something which I'm actually going to, this is almost like an arguing point, right? So we know that the closer you get towards a failure point, there's going to be more stimulation of muscle, really.
Right.
So in theory, that's where I think it's actually got warrant to, if again, if this is a case where it's like a very fixed movement pattern, something like a hip press, a leg press, like for example, a lot of my lower body training, to be fair, all of my lower body compound work, like quads wise, was on a hip press because I couldn't be asked loading at the squat press because I knew that was going to potentially cause some grief. But to be fair, I did a mix of both, squat press or hip press. I didn't do any other squatting patterns, but I was like, I'm very fixed in these movements. So what we actually do is we actually reduce my rep range down to I think it was like 5 to 9, 6 to 11, something like that, 7 to 11, something like that. It was like a very lower rep range because if you're working like isolation work, this is different. But in terms of compound work, if you're doing a hack squat and you're doing a 15 repper, it might take you 10 reps to get towards those stimulating reps, which are going to be building your tissue, or let's say preserving your tissue in this case. But those still reps are still going to accumulate fatigue. So that's why, in my opinion, I would never go into a prep thinking I'm going to do a 20 rep set because you're probably going to gas out before you do that, even though you might be fitter because you're doing more cardio. But you're also going to cause a lot of fatigue through just doing loads and doing loads and doing loads. Whereas you can still get still the very most like yes, you're probably going to lift heavy and it might be more taxing in the moment, but in the long term, you're going to accumulate less fatigue through working in potentially low rep range. I don't mean go for a 3 rep or go for a 4 repper. I still mean anywhere upwards of 8, let's say, but
I
not.
just I obviously I think the main difference is stability.
Yeah,
With
it
hip
depends on things like that. For example, if the only presses you could do were dumbbells, that's when I'd probably opt for something maybe a bit higher rep range. And then if you feel you can, because you've just done a set, maybe then go a bit heavier. That could warrant. I often find as well when I dumbbell press myself, I weirdly feel better the heavier I go. I feel more stable because I feel like it's like if I have 2 pairs of 60 kilos, that I'm not able to do that with them. Give me a pair of tens, I can do the fucking yoki koku with them.
Yeah, well, exactly. But yeah, that's true as well. At the same time, I do feel more stable under heavy dumbbells. But again, in the essence of potential, like we said, later down on the line in prep, when you do get a bit more lack of stability and like more fragile, then possibly an introduction of high rep ranges. But this is all if buts and maybes. It's all subjective to
It's
you
all
your
individual.
environment.
This is why,
Exactly.
like for example, this podcast will hopefully be really helpful, but we're not. This isn't ever. You won't be able to prep yourself for this podcast. It's just a few things which might help. There's never going to be a perfect guide to anything because it needs to be quite a prep needs to be very hand-on. There'll be changes every single day towards the back end. In case of my prep, there was changes every fucking hour, and that wasn't just me choosing different shows. That was literally a case of right, we need to do different things.
It
um,
was also hidden shows as well.
it was also me choosing different. Um, but it's also a case where, like, again, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, like, if my session performance is really bad, I know how to communicate that. I'm not going to go and whinge. I'm just going to go and say, right, this is how things sort of are. There was a body weight drop this morning, as we spoke about. What do you think? I'm sending my visuals anyway, and then we can say, right, we potentially need to put a bit more food in here just to make sure that we don't break down. And then we'll have a look how you are in the morning, potentially put some more food in. Again, there's loads of things where you're never going to be able to plan in advance. What you might have planned in place 9 o'clock in the morning might genuinely change 6 hours later because things do change very, very quick in a prep. And that's where you need to be very hands-on and communicate with your coach, especially towards the back end of prep, but also throughout the entirety as well.
Well, hopefully that there has been at least an insight into where if you're starting prep sometime soon, you first ever prep, fingers crossed, that's giving you some warranted advice to take away to not
What
fuck it
what
up.
what I think if this goes down well, if we get 3 comments, that sounds like fuck all then.
Fucking
We
hell,
get
free
three
comments.
comments with the comment red, right? We'll do a podcast on peak weeks.
Fuck me. That'll be a one, won't it? Be Christ.
No, because there's very different ways. There's different carb loading
Many,
protocols.
many, many ways to skin a cat, mate.
Yeah, but I think that could be a good podcast
Yeah.
because I've done pretty much the same kind of peaking protocol with Tim, but obviously I did multiple different peaking protocols last year. Let's talk about what went well, what you kind of want to look for. Um, Differences when you're enhanced, when you're natural. Because obviously all of my peaks have been enhanced. Sam's never done an enhanced peak week, so we can talk about that. But the reason I chose red was because it's on the tablets in front of me, which is red yeast rice extract. Is the first thing.
Hey, it's a great supplement that actually. It's a great supplement, red yeast rice. Cholesterol levels, solid, mate. Is it the same one as mine? Nah, it's not the same one
Josh,
as
Josh 10. I don't have a discount code for them.
mine.
To be fair, do you see I don't have Josh 10 for Conte anymore?
You know?
Um,
Oh, you bio?
Yeah, it's JJ 10 now.
Oh, is it?
Don't know
Why
what
is it? Why?
he signed Josh Bridgman.
Did he?
And I was like, you know what, fair enough. Fair enough. I was like, absolutely fine, crack on, mate.
Oh fuck! I
I
was
was like,
like,
you know what? If there's anyone who's I was like, yeah, fair, yeah, crack on.
he's trying to Bushman, has he?
I was like, you got into the chat. He was like, yeah, Josh 10. I was like, yeah, Sam, crack on. Like, yeah, forget, yeah, it's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that, mate.
You can have Josh, mate. It's fine. Don't worry. I'll just
Yeah,
leave.
it's fine.
Oh, it has been announced as well.
Yeah,
I don't know that.
yeah, came out.
Where's he even living now, Josh Bridgman? Is he in the UK or is he out somewhere now still? Like, I don't. Where is he? He's everywhere. I don't have a clue. Get him on. Get him on the podcast.
Next podcast, yeah.
Give a message. You're linked to him more than I am.
Hi, mate. I know we've never spoken before,
And I
but
know you stole my code,
you
but
did steal my code. So in the best way, I'm on the podcast. Cheers, mate.
and can you also collaborate and can you also share it and can you also
Yeah, yeah. And also, can you also like send me some like compensation for stealing my discount code? Yeah, cheers, mate. I'm sure it'd be absolutely fine with it. I've still got, to be fair, I've still got one in my cuff
just
in my
one?
yeah, I lost one. I've still got the other one.
I've got two. I'm jealous.
One's last me 4 years.
The other one didn't last 1 week. Fuck's sake. I've got two. They're actually all right to be fair. The cuffs, aren't they? I rate them. Respect. I want to get some of the new. I've got a bit of a sentimental
Use
attachment.
code Bodybuilding and Beanies for 10% off one MR. That's not happening either.
You message him because I got no links to them at all. I'm fucked. You message him. You're about to get it. But I want to. I really want to like lose my straps so I can buy more straps. Like the leather ones from my 1MR.
I,
But
I, I'm not gonna lie, I've already used the Conte ones and they're mint.
yeah,
JJ,
but I've had the.
JJ10 sounds shit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I sound ass, don't
It
lie.
doesn't ring up. Yeah.
So I tell you now, I've had these ones, right? Opti, never heard that brand in my life. I found these in a gym, in Pure Gym, about 6 years ago.
Are they are they like the normal normal ones without the like
But they've got like the padding so fucking worn on them. I like
the
them.
thing is I don't like the padded ones.
I don't like the padded ones either. But these
I like
padding,
the
this is padding, but it's so thin that
oh
it's
like to be fair, the Conte ones have padding, but it's not too bad. But usually I like them when there's just no padding because it just digs into my skin and it's like really, really tight and then my hand
I
goes
like that. I like that,
I
yeah.
like it when my hand's like is it
Yeah.
going white?
What?
Is my hand going white? I like it when the blood circulation cuts off.
Ah, he likes losing his fingers basically.
I'm
That's fine.
really sadistic.
Ah, nice. Yeah, but the one on our level ones have no padding, do they?
I'm really sadistic, but I don't like blood. So
Yeah, he's so he pins every day. Maybe doesn't, but he doesn't like blood. Fantastic. Don't
okay.
care.
Mhm.
He's getting sweaty now. His palms getting sweaty. Let's leave it there before he fucking dies.
Like my foot. You know when like you get a bit nervous, so you start tapping your feet.
Yeah,
My left leg's going.
I'm so sad. I'm fine. Like I've
You
seen some gory shit in my life. I don't give a fuck.
know when like you're in high school and like people would like send around like all that like weird shit. Like
There's nosebleeds freak you out.
no,
Wait, what? So
not
weird.
pain inflicted.
You literally pop the vessels in your nostrils.
No, but it's not pain inflicted. It doesn't hurt. Like if you just get like
It depends. You get jaws, mate. Fucking that
like
loads.
no, but that's like it's different. Like if I got if someone got stabbed, I can't watch it. Like I'd be
Well, I
really
hope not.
I just stab someone. Don't is it in?
Yeah. Okay, you go. Oh,
Oh, for fuck's sake! I mean,
it's on me.
but like, yeah, you know how we were saying before, I was rewatching Prison Break.
Yes.
You've watched it as well, right?
Yes.
Do you know when Michael's toe gets cut off?
Yes.
Now, because I know that happens, I'm literally like,
No way.
can't watch it, even though I know you can't see it.
Oh, you'd be
Like,
so cooked watching Saw.
yeah, but then you know, like when Teabag's hand gets cut off, start of
Yeah.
season 2. Sorry if anyone's watching this, we just spoiled it. I don't really care. It's like years old. I can't watch that. When
What?
is it? What's the guy with long hair who dies?
Oh, fucking
John.
John Vibruzzi.
Yeah, that one. You know when he gets his throat cut
Yeah.
when he's like lying and pull.
You're strange, bruv. It's fake, you know.
Yeah, I did. It doesn't
John Vibruzzi isn't actually dead.
come after you.
He
No,
didn't
but
actually.
like,
That's fake blood. Come on.
I can't. Or even like you know at this. I think is it the start of season 2. You know when Veronica gets shot.
Yeah.
You know when she's laying, she's got like a little bullet thing in her head. That's horrible.
Do you know what? I feel like the biggest torture of you be watching will put you through a Saw film.
Yeah, no,
I reckon that'd be the end of your
it's
life.
weird, right? It's weird, right? I remember watching. You know, have you ever seen the films Happy Death Day?
No.
It's like it's almost like a bit of like a shit like horror film. in a way.
I'll probably watch shit films.
It's basically like she keeps waking up on her. I remember watching it with like an ex-girlfriend in like the cinema, and I
Like,
was like, I didn't say anything because I was like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm scared of blood, but I was like, oh fuck, this isn't gonna go well.
bro was sweating the whole time.
No, but it's like it's actually quite funny. Like she keeps waking up on like it's the day that she dies, but every time she dies, she wakes up at the start of the day again. But
Oh
oh
no, I've watched it. I've watched it. No,
yeah,
I've
yeah.
watched it. Yeah.
But like there's actually like a decent amount of blood in it, and it's like her just killing herself. And in the end, she keeps killing herself and just trying to find a way to stop it. But like I found that quite funny. I didn't find it that bad. But like it's really like weird. It's really selective, my like phobia of blood.
Yeah, Saw, you'd have a field day on Saw, mate. I reckon it'd kill you. I genuinely think you'd die, mate. I think if I had to strap you there and put like matches in your eyes, you can close your eye and you'd die.
Even like to be fair, you know what was have you ever seen Bird Box on Netflix?
Yes.
That was a bit hit and miss. Like some of that, I was like, that's just funny.
Why do I feel like I want to test out your phobia? Like so bad.
It's like no, but like weird. Like some of that, I was like, yeah, it's fun. Some of that, I was like, I'm gonna cry. I feel sick. I also remember watching it like 3 a.m. in lockdown.
Yeah. 3 a.m. is also a peak time to watch films, can't lie.
I don't know why I decided to do that. Um, yeah, it wasn't great.
Don't do Josh. You need optimal sleep.
Yeah, don't do that in number one, don't do that in prep. But it's like weird. Like I remember like this. I don't know when it must have been like just over a year ago because I remember I reshared it was like a year ago today or something, and I like accidentally cut my thumb or my finger in the gym.
Then yeah.
Huh?
Said this send you under.
No, like it was like a very minute cut, but like it was like a relatively deep cut with like a bit of flesh hanging off. And I put it on my story. I was like, oh, blood and guts being all like really cringy and
And
funny.
then he died afterwards.
I was literally, I was like, then I had to run, go and get some tissue, calm myself down, have a drink of water. Then I put the story up. But I didn't look at the story. I just typed it. Went,
Yeah, so let's type it up for you.
I'm not lying.
Oh my God. I don't get me wrong, like I've done some things in the past where like I nearly took the fucking took off my finger off with a bread knife before. And that like that I look at it and go, oh, that's sore, but it doesn't kill me. I'm fine. I just go, God damn. I just put a plaster on that thing. I think what it is, it sounds weird, yeah, but I'm used to my acne being like fucking. I used to have nodules back in the day, that used to just bleed all the time, so I'm kind of used to just
So,
fucking.
like, if it's a spot that I've popped, I don't care.
Yeah, but I'm talking. My fucking nodules used to bleed like fuck me.
No, but it's not anything like that. It's really like weird. Like some things, like if I, sometimes when like you bite your lip or something, it bleeds.
Yeah,
Fine. I know.
something that's you mean something that's possible harm to life.
Yeah.
Paper cut. Fuck. I'm gonna
No,
die.
no, no. Paper cuts are the worst. Paper cuts are the worst.
They even bleed that much. They just
It's
fucking hurt.
actually, to be fair, now I've thought about it, there's two triggers for this, kind of. Not balloons.
Balloons are the trigger.
I can't, but I'll say after the podcast, I can't, the two things can never be said in public.
Okay.
Very
That's
bad. That's a great way to end the
that
podcast.
really confuses me. Anyway, right, comment red if you want us to do a peak week video. So to you 10 listeners, thank you very much. I appreciate it. At least three of you comment red if you want to know about peak week. If not, you don't comment, which chance I'll probably do one anyway. So yeah, enjoy.
That
Uh,
should come straight after this.
but yeah. So thank you very much for listening. We are still doing Trinity Beanie giveaway, but we're doing it in a different fashion because nobody decided to comment, tag, or follow us. So we're doing it in a different fashion over Instagram, probably closer to Christmas. And because you guys suck, we are going to be giving away less beanie this time. So fuck you. That's on you guys. But yeah,
I
good
love Christmas.
crack.
Sam hates Christmas, hates giving back to people.
Mate, I bought so many presents this year. I'm bankrupt from presents.
Yeah, I'm sound. I've only got two people to buy presents for.
So
Lonely.
I've only bought for four, so it's not a big deal. It's two more than you though, so but my bank account's now broken. So if you want to get us more following on here, get us monetized and also yeah, by all means, yeah, we'll
We're never getting fucking monetized, Sam.
yeah, that's far gone, isn't
I
it?
will stop us from getting monetized.
I think that's far gone from episode one.
Yeah.
I can't remember episode one. I think we probably said something in there which is out of
I
order.
think even on the reel we posted, I think I said something a bit weird.
I think
Uh,
we talked about autism, didn't we?
probably. But then also, the podcast you posted with Josh Miller Hall. I didn't even watch the reel because I was driving home from the gym. I didn't realize you put in the fucking reel that I can't count to 10.
Yeah, you're fucked.
Yeah, and then fucking AJ Morris liked it.
So now he knows you can't count to 10. I was like, why is he liking it? He follows Josh Miller Hall.
He's prepping.
Oh,
He's
because he
prepping.
prepped him, didn't he? Dude, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, we're waffling, so love you lots. Speak to you in a bit. Comment, like, subscribe, share any story, tags is appreciated. Comment red. See ya in a bit. Ta-da.
Bye.